Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let us start with another topic in our this first chapter, which is known as aspects of development. Hope so the previous lecture was clear to you. I asked you a question, girls, and I didn't get any response from your side. This is not the desirable thing. Whenever you are asked a question by the teacher, then you are supposed to answer that question. And I told you that you can use any forum, any medium of answering that particular question. And it was so easy, but you people didn't respond. So my question was that what are developmental milestones? Now, developmental milestones are set of functional skills or age-specific tasks that most children can do at a certain age. These are age-specific tasks that are appropriate to be done, to be achieved, skills that are appropriate to be achieved in a particular age. That is known as developmental milestone. Simple example is that most of the children, they walk at the age of 1 year. So 1 year is the developmental milestone for walking. Fine. Now there are exceptions, as in the previous lecture I told you. But mostly, normally, average people, they walk, average children, they walk, start walking in this particular age. Is it clear? So this is developmental milestone of walking. Then there is developmental milestone of speaking. Then there is developmental milestone of concept formation. Fine. So with every task achievement, every skill achievement, there is appropriate age, and when one child achieves that particular task, is able to achieve that particular skill, we say that he or she has achieved that developmental milestone. Now coming to the aspects of development. Now in the previous lecture I told you what are the aspects of development. Fine. There is physical development, psychological development, cognitive development, and social development. These are all known as aspects of development, and these are all interrelated. Fine. This I have told you the other day as well, that physical development is interrelated with psychological, cognitive, and social development, and same is the case with the other types of aspects. So the very first aspect is physical development. Physical development, it includes all the changes that occur as one grows older. When you grow in your chronological age, then there are certain changes taking place in your body. Fine. All these changes are naturally occurring. This is a natural process. So these are naturally occurring. So when you grow, and with the passage of time, side by side, this growing up, when you experience change in your physique and body, then this is the physical development. So this physical development, it starts from the time when you are not born. Prenatal development is also one of the feature of physical development. Prenatal development means the development before the time of birth. So when you are not born, when you are in the womb of the mother, this developmental process starts from there until your old age. Physical development is very prominent. By this we mean that physical development can be seen, like the other person can observe the changes in your physique, in your body. So it is very prominent. Now what are the changes that occur during physical development? The child organs grew to maturity. Fine. Because of the growth, the organs grow, and organs are able to perform tasks. So we say that organs become mature. There is a marked change in weight and height. Definitely when we grow, then there is change in height and weight, and when there is no change, then there is an abnormality. Ratio of physical proportion remains constant. It doesn't happen that your head size keep on growing and your rest of the trunk, it does not grow. All aspects of this physical development, they grow with equal proportion. All internal systems also grow. It's not only the outside body that grows. There is the change in the respiratory system, growth in the respiratory system, digestive system, blood circulatory system, in the glands, in the secretion of glands, in the secretion of neurotransmitters. So all these things, they change. Now, stages of physical development. As I told you that this development takes place from the time when you are not born till the death of an individual. So the stages can be summarized in as prenatal period, infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and old age. Fine. So this is the basic, we can say, the distribution of stages of physical development. There is another way of dividing these stages where we divide the, for example, adolescence as the early adolescence. Adolescence is further divided into early adolescence, middle adolescence, late adolescence. Same is the case with the adulthood, early adulthood, late, middle, late. Fine. So, but you should be knowing these general stages of physical development. Now, hope so the physical development is clear to you. It is the aspect of development which basically studies all the physiological changes that are taking place in inside or outside of any individual. Coming to the psychological development. Now, psychological development is basically the development, the change in your personality and behavior. It is the change in your feelings, emotions, abilities, ambitions, attitudes. With the passage of time, as you grow, there is a change in your personality, there is a change in your behavior. Fine. So all the changes that are taking place with respect to your personality, with respect to your behavior, these are known as psychological development. Important aspect of this development is that individual becomes aware of the feelings and emotions. Little child is not aware of the feelings and emotions and the abilities and the attitudes. All these things during childhood stage are in the forming stage. But when you grow up, then you understand your own feelings, feelings of others, your own emotions, emotions of others, your own abilities, what are you capable to do. Fine. You form your attitudes, your likeness, dislikeness for anything. So all these things also grow with the passage of time. Now, psychological development, it enables the individual, first of all, to form concepts of right and wrong and form a clear self-image. They imbibe or they inculcate in you the principle of morality, the principle of right and wrong. This is because of psychological development. You come to know that this way of dealing or this way of showing behavior is right and appropriate, and you carry with that on. And this is not appropriate, so you don't adopt it. Then you form your self-image. Self-image, in the previous lecture we have also discussed that what is your thinking about your own self. What do you see your own self in your own mind? Fine. Or what is your definition of your own self? This is your self-image. So when your personality is growing in the very appropriate manner, then your self-image will be very positive. When your personality is not developing in the appropriate manner, then definitely children and adults, they may have poor self-image. Fine. So in the next chapter we will be studying, inshallah, about the different theories of this developmental psychology. So then you will understand that each and every stage of physical development, it has an effect upon the psychological development and specifically in forming your self-image. The third aspect of development is cognitive development. Now, first of all, you should be knowing the meaning of cognition. Cognition means to know and understand, to know the world around you, to know and understand the people around you. Fine? All this, what do we call it, the awareness about the surroundings is basically our cognition. Now, it is the process by which we gain this ability to know and understand the world. As you know, that as soon as the child is born and after some time, child starts observing the things around himself. Fine. He observes the environment. He understands or perceives the people around him, explores the environment. So all these processes, they develop the cognition of that particular child. So this cognitive development is also occurring gradually, just like the other processes of development, other aspects of development. This also occurs gradually. Initially, it is very simple at the very basic level, and as the child grows, then this development becomes more complex and sophisticated. Fine. So basically, our brain is responsible for cognitive development. So you see that I told you that there are schemas in our brain. Schemas are basically the storehouse of knowledge. When a child is born and after some time in childhood, the child has not very much well-developed schemas. Fine, because of no education, as such no training, as such no socialization. So there are no well-developed schemas. But as the child grows, then schemas, they become more complicated. So these schemas are basically stored in our brain. So our brain is growing with the passage of time. So our cognitive development is also becoming more complex with the passage of time. Cognitive development begins right after the birth, just like your psychological development, just like physical development. Cognitive development also begins right after the birth. So soon after the birth, when the child is able to sit, stand, he or she starts exploring the environment. Child is able to identify the faces. He recognizes the mother or the caregiver and the other people who are around. Then the family members. Then when they enter into the in their childhood, then they recognize their peers. They can differentiate their family members from the strangers. Fine. All these are indications of the development of cognition. And then the very important thing is that concept formation occurs. Initially, the child is not able to understand or grasp the difficult things. All this is basically the development of schemas. So initially, the child is able to understand very, like you can say, things which are very ordinary. The language of the child is not very much developed. The child has not as such, we can say, a storehouse of vocabulary in the brain. But as the child grows, now there is process of growing in height, in other features of your physical development, and there is another feature of side by side this growth, which is maturation. You grow, you become mature. Fine. When you show particular skill, when you excel in particular area, then you become more mature. And then when the child reaches the stage of early adolescence, then they are able to think logically. They are able to find the cause and effect relationship. If you remember in first year, we studied about experimental psychology, experimental method. In experimental method, we studied about the cause and effect. So why this thing is happening, and if it is happening, then what will be the effect of this thing? This is cause and effect. So initially concept formation is very simple and at the basic level, and it is very concrete initially, but later on this concept formation becomes very complex and abstract. A very young child, little child, is unable to think in the abstract way. If you ask the child, if child hasn't seen an umbrella, then you can't ask the child to imagine umbrella in the brain. Fine, but later on their abstract thinking develops because of their exposure, because of their learning, because of their development and maturation. Is it clear? So this is cognitive development. Now the last aspect of the development is known as social development. Now social development, just like the other types of development, is another very important feature in developmental psychology, because you know that when human being and the newborn individual of any human being is very weak at the time of birth, is very feeble at the time of birth as compared to many other species. So the human baby, little infant, is very weak and is completely dependent upon the other person, who may be the parents or other caregivers, but that particular newborn baby is dependent upon another individual for a longer period of time. This is the main difference. The babies of other species, no doubt they are also dependent, but their dependency time period is a short time period, whereas an human infant dependency time period is quite longer time period. So from the very day one, when a newborn is handled by the mother, and he or she is given care by the mother or by any other caregiver, then this is the start of a social relationship developed between two individuals. Again, it also develops at the time of the birth. Fine. So social development is a process of determining an individual's interaction with society from birth to adulthood, till even your old age and even till death. We need this interaction. As someone has rightly said, that human being or man is a social animal. What do we mean by this? Because we all the time need this interaction. We all the time need the company of other people. So social development helps the individual to adapt to society. Because of the social development, we become a good member of this society. We get adjusted to the society. How? Due to interaction. You come to know that how you have to behave in this particular setting. What are the norms, rules and regulations of the society? Fine. So all this process is learned through the interaction. That interaction is between parents and the children, teachers and the students, peers and the friends. So due to all these interactions, we learn, and this is basically what gives rise to social development. Now, the process of socialization continues due to cognitive learning, conditioning and observation. Now, first of all, what is socialization? Now, as we have interaction with other people, as I told you earlier, then we come to know about the rules and regulations and morality of any particular, principles of morality of any particular society. Now, when we become aware of these principles and when we implement these principles in our life as well, then we become socialized. We become better able to adjust, better able to adapt. Now, this process of socialization, it occurs due to cognitive learning, conditioning, observational learning. If I'm not wrong, then in the previous year, you people in the chapter of learning, you have studied these types of learning: cognitive learning, conditioning and observational learning. I'm not going into the detail. Fine, you people, if right now you don't know about the basic idea of these types, then open your first year book and learn what is meant by cognitive learning, conditioning, and observational learning. But these types of learning are important for the process of socialization to occur. Now, due to this process of socialization, the individual learns culture, values, tradition, rules, and customs. As we have discussed all these things. So, we do not learn these things from our family only. We learn these things from our school, college, university, from our peers, from our other neighbors, from other relatives. So all these are known as agents of socialization. Family, peers, school, media, very important, and other relatives. These are all known as the agents of socialization. And these agents are very important in the process of socialization because we learn our culture through these agents. Now, the effects of social development. First, that individual becomes capable of social adjustment. You become, as you might have seen, that people who remain aloof, who remain isolated, they are not better adjusted in their society. There is definitely a problem with them, or due to isolation, they may suffer from any problem, but those are not the better adjusted individuals. Clear sense of social responsibility lodges itself in their consciousness. They come to know that what is being a member of a society, what is their social responsibility. Lodges means it stays, it resides in their consciousness. And consciousness, you are very well aware, your awareness at that particular moment. Fine? Individual becomes aware of rights and duties. What are the rights of the individual and what are the duties of that particular individual? We become aware due to this social development. Individual forms association with other individuals. Other individuals, they help. Social development helps the individual in forming associations, relationships with other members of the society. Now, along with learning social behavior, individual adopts the etiquettes of various social gatherings. Again, you learn these things through your social development, which is basically your process of socialization. You come to know that how to respect our elders. For example, when any elder member comes in the room, then the younger people, they stand up. This is a gesture of respect. This is an etiquette, fine, which we learn through this social development. Like other aspects of development, it also begins during infancy. It does not happen that when you become adult, then at once you become aware of all the etiquettes and norms. No. When you are young child, then you are taught from your family, from your parents, from your school, that what are the norms, what is our culture, what are the etiquette of living in any society. So, this was your social development. Now we have over here completed 4 aspects of development: physical, psychological, cognitive, and social, which are basically in your syllabus. There are many other aspects as well, but we are going to do these 4 aspects. Okay, the last topic in your book is sensory and perceptual development. Actually, it is part of physical and cognitive development. But as in this way it is written in your book, so we will be doing it accordingly. So, what is sensation, what is perception, you are very well aware. So, at the very beginning, at the very start of the life, the child has all the senses that reach maturity gradually. All the senses are working at the time of birth, and they get more mature with the passage of time, except in some cases of where there is some abnormality. Otherwise, normally, the normal children, they have all the senses properly functional at the time of birth. Now, the sensory development includes your visual sense, auditory sense, tactile sense, olfactory sense, and gustatory sense. Visual sense. Visual sense is very important, and soon after the birth, the child opens the eyes and starts looking around. So as the child grows, he observes the objects with the bright colors. The visual sense becomes more acute. The child gets more interested when he is looking at the moving objects or bright colors. So when the object is moving from one place to another, the child shifts the position of eye from that side to another side. So visual sense is very prominent during early days of a child. Next is the auditory sense. Again, after some days, the child, we can observe the presence of auditory sense in the child. When there is a loud sound, then the child at once notices that sounds and tries to locate the sounds by moving his head. So by the age of 6 months, the child is able to not only to locate the sound, but they are also able to differentiate between the sounds. Mostly they are able to recognize the sound of their mother, the voice of their mother, and they are able to differentiate it from the voices of other people. They are able to understand the angry voice and the happy voice. Clear? Then is the tactile sense. Tactile means to touch something, and again this is very common, and you might have observed it. As soon as a crying child is carried into the lap by someone, then the child stops crying, which indicates that child comes to know that someone has touched the child. So, and this touch is basically to console the child. So he understands this thing. Olfactory sense. Olfactory is basically your sense of smell. Again, this is present at the time of birth. The child, whenever there is unpleasant smell coming from somewhere, the child turns its head away from that particular smell. And then the gustatory sense. Gustatory is basically your taste, and sense of taste is again very sharp at the time of birth. The child is able to differentiate between a sweet and bitter things. Fine. And when they are tasting sweet or bitter things, their facial expressions, they show that it is they are getting annoyed by the bitter thing, or they are happy with the sweet things. Okay. And then is the perceptual development. Now in the first year you have studied sensation, you have studied perception. You should know the relationship between these two processes. But one thing you should be knowing, that sensation is nothing without perception, and perception is nothing without sensation. Fine. Both are very closely interrelated concepts. So when a child has all the senses properly working at the time of birth, then these senses help the child to understand the world. This understanding of the world, awareness of the world, is basically perception. When we say the child is able to differentiate between sweet and bitter tastes, now this differentiation is basically perception. When we say the child is able to understand this thing, that this sound is coming from far off place and this sound is coming from the near place, then this is perception. When the child is able to differentiate the voice of mother from the voice of other people in the family, then this is perception. Regarding perception, and specifically regarding the cognitive development of a child, there is a very important psychologist, Jean Piaget, who was a Swiss psychologist basically. We will do his theory in detail in the next chapter, inshallah. So that is why I am not going into the detail of what he basically said about the initial development phases of a child. But he was of the opinion that the child learns perception of objects during infancy. During infancy, the child becomes aware of the size and shape, of the colors, of the weight. These things child becomes aware during infancy. Okay, so this was the last topic in your book, which was sensory and perceptual development. You may write this thing under the section of, if you are asked a question in your exams, then you may write this thing under the section of physical or cognitive development. Is it clear? Okay, thank you.